Is a real photo of Jerry Nave. He had his face blown off with a shotgun at a bus stop. He was on LA's Skid Row while he was waiting for the bus, and next thing you knew, he woke up 4 months later in a coma with the right side of his face blown off. The doctors performed a 22-hour operation on him to try to restore his facial structure. This happened in 1998. He was working as a machinist, and all he was doing was waiting for the bus to go home. The doctor said it was a miracle he even survived this, and he was shot at point-blank range.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? If you guys are brand new to the channel, you guys don't know what we do. Let me break it down for you guys, man. We talk about the most scariest and creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG reels, Facebook, anything weird, usual, and unexplained you can find right here on this channel. Just want to thank all my supporters, man, who's coming back to the channel each and every single day, man, watching the videos entirely, commenting down below, most importantly, hitting that thumbs up button on each and every single video drop. I really appreciate the support, man. Found this video for you guys today. Let's do what we do best, seekers, man. Say it with me, y'all. Yeah, I know what we do. Let's seek the truth.
Should be scared of mirrors. Reddit user Liberated Man said that when he was about 12 years old, he woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. He walked across the hall to the bathroom, hit the lights, and was about to reach for the toilet when he glanced up and saw a face in the mirror. It wasn't his face. He said that it was as if someone was on the other side, standing to the right, with their face right next to the glass, staring at him. He only saw it for the briefest moment, but it seared into his brain. He screamed and ran out to find his dad. His dad, of course, investigated and then calmed him down, or tried to. They had a prayer session because he was so freaked out. Eventually, he went back to sleep. He said that fast forward to his 30s, he had forgotten all about the event, until one night, while visiting, his dad quietly brings it up. He said, "Remember that one time you saw a face in the mirror?" It suddenly came back to him in a rush of a memory, sending a chill down his spine. He said, "Yeah, I remember." And then his dad said, "Well, sometimes I think about that night." He looked down at the floor with a serious expression, and then he said, "I saw it too." He went on to describe exactly what Reddit user Liberated Man had seen. Neither of them have any idea what it was. Apparently, when his dad went to investigate, he saw it and had a freak out of his own. And the prayer session was as much for his own nerves as it was his son's.
For both of them, so they both saw the same thing. You guys believe that story?
This one's actually insane. In 2010, 55-year-old Greg Flanagan was found dead on the floor inside of his locked hotel room in Texas. There were no signs of a break-in or robbery, as Greg's wallet was still in his back pocket with cash inside. He had suffered no obvious external injuries, but had massive internal damage, including broken ribs, damage to his liver and intestines, and a hole through his heart. Flanagan's death was soon ruled an unsolved homicide, despite coroners having no idea what actually happened to him. After an 8-month investigation, it was revealed that he died from a 1-in-a-million series of events. A drunk guest in the next hotel room accidentally fired a single bullet through the wall while playing with his pistol. While Flanagan was laying down watching Iron Man 2, the bullet hit him directly in the scrotum and continued up through his body and through his heart, likely killing him moments after he stood up and stumbled toward the door. Lance Moeller was later sentenced to 10 years in prison for his neighbor's bizarre accidental murder.
That is truly one of the most unluckiest passings, man, we heard of. He was watching Iron Man 2 as some idiot, man, was playing around with the gun in a hotel room, which you shouldn't be doing anyway, and look what happened. He went from the scrotum all the way up. But I never guessed that could have happened in a million years. So I watch these videos, man, to expand my knowledge base with you guys. It's a must now. That's an edit. If y'all see any edits here, I can call them out, man. I don't want to be the only one calling them out.
Here's some random facts that will mess with the way you see the world. Astronaut means star sailor. Astro meaning star and not meaning sailor. That is such a cool name. High heels were originally made for butchers so they wouldn't get blood on the bottom of their shoes. The first ever webcam was created to check on a coffee pot just to make sure it didn't catch on fire. In Switzerland, it's illegal to own just one guinea pig. You need at least 2 or more. I think it's because they get depressed if they're alone. Like, I'm not even joking. Australia is wider than the moon. How does that work? The Eiffel Tower is taller in the summer. This is because metal expands when it gets hot, right? A jiffy is an actual unit of time. It's 1/1000th of a second. In Japan, there's over 200 flavors of Kit Kats.
Huh?
I didn't know that there were 200 flavors, period. Queen Elizabeth was a trained mechanic in the military. That's a baller move, though. Become a mechanic and then a queen. Like, do you know the only letter that doesn't appear in a U.S. state name? I'll give you like 3 seconds. Ready? 3, 2, 1. The letter Q.
3 most haunted places in the Muslim world. Desi edition. Let's turn off these lights. At number 3, I have Lal Bagh Fort in Bangladesh. This fort started construction in the 1600s, but it was never fully built. This fort is so haunted that it has 3 different ghost stories, not just one. The first ghost story is the story of Puri Bibi, who died inside of this fort in 1684. It is said now the ghost of Puri Bibi haunts this place, and at nighttime people report hearing her dancing and singing inside of the fort. The second story is a headless horseman who goes to this fort to pray inside the prayer room every single night at 3 a.m. People report hearing prayer coming out of this prayer room when it's completely empty, and we all know that's just jinns praying in congregation. MashaAllah. The third story is about an endless tunnel that's closed off to the public that's in this fort. During the British rule of South Asia, a British investigation team sent chained dogs into this endless tunnel, and they never came back. Same exact thing happened to some elephants they sent into this tunnel, so what they did is they sealed off the tunnel and closed it off to the public. At number 2, I have the New Islamabad Airport. The New Islamabad Airport is known to have a lot of ghostly sightings, sounds that you can hear at empty spots of the airport, and electrical malfunctions. It's said that this airport was built on cursed land, but what really happened is probably black magic was on the land already, or there's a jinn infestation inside that airport. At number 1, I have the Mohata Palace in Pakistan. The Mohata Palace is notorious for being haunted in Pakistan. It was built in the late 1920s by a man whose last name was Mohata. I'm not saying his full name. After the partition, it was used by various government officials until it became a museum. Visitors of the Mohata Palace say they hear voices, see figures, things moving, and they hear parties going on inside the palace. People say it's haunted by the former residents, but we all know that's a jinn.
And they throwing parties there?
Statues caught moving on camera. Statue of Liberty.
Badasses of History, Part 20. During the Sandy Hook school shooting in 2012, 27-year-old elementary teacher Vicky Soto died a hero while saving her students from the gunman. After hearing gunshots from outside, she quickly hid her first graders in the classroom closet and refused to hide herself. When the shooter came to her room, she told him that her students were in the gym, after which some of the kids ran from their hiding spots in a panic. The shooter opened fire, but Soto shielded the children with her body as they escaped, saving 11 young lives while sacrificing her own. Nicknamed the Saint of Auschwitz, Maximilian Kolbe was a Polish Catholic priest who offered to die in the place of a concentration camp prisoner who was condemned to die of starvation. After surviving for several weeks, Kolbe was eventually killed by an injection of acid. The man he sacrificed himself for lived on for another 50+ years and dedicated his life to telling Kolbe's story. In 1982, the Pope canonized Kolbe and declared him a martyr of charity.
Fun fact of the day that my small brain cannot physically comprehend. This one really did make me say, what the fuck? I want you to do me a favor and pour yourself a glass of water. Do it! Now, there is an immensely high chance that that water you're about to drink is older than the solar system. This is because it existed in ice specks floating in cosmic clouds before any of this shit came to be. Oh, and one more thing. Scientists estimate that every glass of water you drink has 100% passed through a dinosaur. So put immensely bluntly, the most vital thing humans need to survive is Jurassic wee-wee. My brain! Let's make a deal. If you didn't know these facts or they shocked you in any way, you have to share it. Now remind someone to stay hydrated today. And then immediately send them this video. We're so evil. Elon!
So if you drink this, bro, drinking some water, man, drinking Jurassic pee-pee. Wee-wee. The hell? I didn't even know that, man. So this water we drink is older than the solar system because of the ice specs? Tap in, bro. Woo! It's an edit, bro. Where is this guy, man? Feel like I'm at expert level, man. I'm calling out the edits.
Stop scrolling because this has to be one of the creepiest Reddit posts ever. This Reddit user said that him and his friend went hiking in a forest in New York State. While exploring the caves off the trail, they discovered a disturbing statue. It had nails driven into its eyes, a noose around its neck, and an unsettling aura. One of them felt uneasy and warned against taking it because he had heard of satanic rituals that occur in that forest. But the other one decided to bring it home anyway. Strange occurrences began almost immediately. At night, there were banging noises, the statue moved on its own, and a strong smell of pond water filled the house. The man's dog, usually calm, refused to go near the statue and even started peeing indoors. One night, a knock on the door woke him up at 3 a.m., but when he opened it, no one was there. By morning, he discovered barefoot, muddy footprints throughout the house, even though all the doors and windows were locked. He was so scared that he went to his friend's house, and his friend said that he broke down in tears. After more strange events, the two decided to send the statue to someone that said they could handle it. Since then, the disturbances have stopped, but the two remain deeply unsettled by the whole experience.
Or games.
Yeah, just send that cursed statue off.
Granny. Granny was based of a Russian woman named Tamara Samsonova. She was a Russian serial killer who was arrested in July of 2015. She held her son captive in her house, and when he moved or made a sound, she beat him with a bat. But on the 5th day, she killed him. But she didn't only kill her son, she also had 11 victims along with her husband, her grandson, and even the tenant of her apartment building. She also supposedly had schizophrenia. She was also a cannibal. She butchered her victims and ate what's left. He was also caught on camera carrying the butchered parts of her victims. This was the gameplay showing her ways of doing the crime.
Why is it two of them? I got no chance.
Which game should I tackle next?
Unknown facts about history's most famous people. Steve Jobs was a video game designer before Apple. John Lennon was a graphics designer before musician. Mahatma Gandhi was a lawyer and journalist before politics. Steve Irwin was a pest exterminator before wildlife expert. Elvis Presley served in the US Army before making music.
Never knew. We can.
Whatever picture you
Never
see
knew that.
first reveals what kind of person you are, part 5. Up first is this photo. If you see 3 vases, it means that you have very big goals in life, but will not accomplish them until you step out of your comfort zone. Also, it means that you love focusing on yourself. But if you saw 2 people, it means that life feels very boring for you, and that you're a very kind soul, and you are ready for anything that happens to you in your life. Next up is this picture. If you saw a rabbit, it means that you consider every single consequence before doing anything. And you're a very mean and straight up person. But if you saw a duck, it means you have rapid mood swings, and you make a lot of decisions based on emotion.
Which I saw. I guess a list of celebrities you don't mess with or you don't like. I guess everybody got one. It's an edit, bro.
She took a babysitting job, but they didn't mention this was in the house. Soph Clayton uploaded a series of videos where she shows the house she's babysitting at has faceless, children-like dolls that face the wall like they're playing hide and seek.
Guys, I'm babysitting and I just found the creepiest thing. What is that? Oh my god. No, but what is it? Another one. Why would you look at that? Why would anyone have this in their house?
If you look closely, each of these dolls have bells attached to them, as if they're there to alert movement. She wanted to make fun of the doll's position, and by doing so, this happens.
Guys, guess who I am?
She didn't notice, but what looks like the figure of a girl can be seen in the mirror entering a room.
We saw that.
These are some dirty history facts that I guarantee you were never taught. And if you ever told your history teacher any of these, they definitely go, excuse me, what the fuck? The first taught toy was invented by Cleopatra. However, to actually make it work, she put angry bees inside of it. You know, so that it would go... I can't lie, don't think that would pass Dragon's Den. Next up, the ancient Romans used stale urine as mouthwash. Cool! But why? We actually know that Benjamin Franklin had a MILF fetish. A letter that he wrote back in the day was actually found and confirmed this. However, the detail he went into within this letter, we're not gonna go there. There is a sign in Pompeii next to the fountain that translates to "Please don't shit in the fountain." All I can think is how many times did that have to happen for a sign to become necessary? And finally, cornflakes were invented to stop what rhymes with fastitation. It was believed that doing this to yourself was a big no-no. They thought stale foods helped fight this urge. Thus, cornflakes. Anywho. Elon!
They were completely wrong on that. I don't think that stopped.
The court cases happening in 2025 are about to go crazy. In January alone, we have Donald Trump facing sentencing for falsifying business records related to hush money payments. On the same day, the Supreme Court will hear arguments on TikTok's fate. And if they don't pause the ban on January the 19th, the US waves goodbye to TikTok. On the 16th, the DOJ's massive antitrust cases against major corporations like Meta, Google, Visa, and Apple begins. They're being accused of engaging in monopolistic practices that stifle competition, and potential outcomes include corporate restructuring and significant fines. Still, in January is the Menendez brothers resentencing hearing, and New York's Mayor Eric Adams faces charges of federal bribery and campaign finance violations. In May, Diddy will stand trial in federal court where he faces life in prison. And given the status of the individuals alleged to be implicated, the testimonies and evidence presented in court is expected to be groundbreaking. Luigi's next significant hearing will be on the 21st of February. March is going to be a busy month for OpenAI, because first they're being sued by the New York Times for allegedly using their content to train their AI models, and then also by Elon Musk for violating their original mission as a non-profit and transitioning to a for-profit entity. In February, Rudy Giuliani faces legal proceedings over his failure to comply with a $148 million defamation payment, which was awarded to the two Georgia election workers he had falsely accused of election fraud in 2020. And then in the summer, the DOJ is seeking to break up Live Nation and Ticketmaster. Buckle up, it's gonna be a busy year.
Out of all those cases, Seekers, man, what do you think that's gonna get the most attention? I think it's gonna be the Diddy case, bro. That joint, it's gonna break the, it might break the world, man, with those revelations that's gonna drop. All truths will be exposed on that day.
Behind me is a real photo of Jerry Nave. He had his face blown off with a shotgun at a bus stop. He was on LA's Skid Row while he was waiting for the bus, and next thing you knew, he woke up 4 months later in a coma with the right side of his face blown off. The doctors performed a 22-hour operation on him to try to restore his facial structure. This happened in 1998. He was working as a machinist, and all he was doing was waiting for the bus to go home. The doctor said it was a miracle he even survived this, and he was shot at point-blank range. However, if he wasn't shot at point-blank range, his head might have come off. After the incident, he lost contact with most of society, including his own family. All of the doors really closed on him after that. He can't even breathe through his nose properly. He can't smell. He can't taste. Because of his other eye being blown off, he can barely read. He can see through his left eye, but it's pretty blurry. Jerry Nave did pass in November of 2020. It was said there was someone looking for him, possibly his brother, but he just did not want to contact anybody. And the sad thing about this is that they never found his shooter, so this person is probably still out there, and this is probably not their first violent act. But Jerry was a pretty pure soul. He said, "I forgive them." That is such an insane thing to forgive someone after blowing off half of your face. Jerry was obviously known as a very sweet person, of course, as you can tell by the story, and it's just sad that life ended like this for him. Now, if you look up Jerry Nave, there's many interviews with him, and I honestly urge you to go look at them because he's such a pure person. Very sincere, very kind. If you Google him, anyone on the internet that's interacted with him says he's so nice. Let me know your thoughts about Jerry.
Let's talk about another one of the most interesting and terrifying urban legends on the internet, the Smiling Man. The Smiling Man is a humanoid entity who is described as being unnaturally tall and lanky, with a cartoonishly large smile that never leaves his face. Those who have encountered him have described his behavior as being unusual and unsettling, dancing when there is no music being played in the middle of the street, and staring at random people as they pass him by. His purpose and his origins are largely unknown. He will appear to random people at night, whether in the streets or in their own homes, and although he does not typically attack, his victims are left with severe PTSD, seeing his unnerving smile in their dreams long after he is gone. He possesses many unnatural abilities which he uses to stalk people, such as telekinesis, telepathy, teleportation, and perhaps the most disturbing, dream traveling. Some people say that once you've seen his smile, it will haunt you for the rest of your life. Tag a friend who needs to see this and follow for more.
Beware the smiler, man. I'll be like, keep that bad energy away from me. I don't need him or whatever that is haunting my dreams.
Fun fact, Fujifilm managed to avoid the collapse of the camera film industry by switching to beauty products. The digital camera killed a number of companies, most notably Kodak, who pretty much dominated the camera film era. Funny enough, Kodak invented the first digital camera in 1975, but didn't believe it would catch on. But Fujifilm saw the writing on the wall, and knew that digital cameras would kill their business. So they looked to diversify. They moved into medical imaging technology, as well as beauty products. Since their research and development department had found many of the chemicals they used to prevent film from oxidizing were also incredibly effective skincare products. They began working on a skincare line, and in 2007 they released an award-winning line of skincare products called Astalift. The success of Astalift helped Fujifilm successfully pivot away from being a camera film company and stay alive through the death of film, as opposed to Kodak, which went bankrupt in 2012.
There was this dude that came in for raping a 2-year-old little girl. He literally stuck a whole broom up his ass. I still have the vision in my head because it looked like a cartoon. You were like, where's the other... Where's the rest of the broom? Yeah.
Did you know that in 2021, the United States government paid $5.4 billion to house child sex predators in their prisons? So this study was released by a Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Health researcher. And yes, like I just said, your hard-earned money that the government takes for taxes, $5.4 billion of that money is being spent on housing child sex predators. I mean, that is an absolutely staggering number, and obviously it has to do with the number of offenders that exist in the United States. There's so many of them, and we have such a big problem here in America with those sorts of crimes. But I literally could not believe that. And here's another disturbing statistic for you. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 13 boys under the age of 18 experience sexual abuse during childhood. And data also shows that 12% of the world's children will be abused before they turn 18. I want you to just think about that for a second. Let's say you take a group of 4 young girls, 4 children. Statistically, here in America, it's likely that one of those 4 girls' children will be molested before they turn 18. Now, repeat that over and over and over throughout the entire population of children in America. That's a fucking problem. That is a massive problem that you don't see politicians talking about too often. And this should piss you off. But to end this, I'm going to play you another clip from that same video, that interview with that guy, discussing how other prisoners take care of child molesters in prison.
There was this dude that came in for raping a 2-year-old little girl. He literally stuck a whole broom up his ass. I still have the vision in my head because it looked like a cartoon. You were like, where's the other... Where's the rest of the broom? Yeah, where's the rest of the broom? And his hands... They had hit him with metal pipes so many times, all the bones were broke on his hands, so he was trying to put his hands down, and it was just like, you know, it's even hard to explain.
This is a true horrifying story of a haunted house in Jumeirah 1. This story was submitted by a family, a mom, a dad, and 3 daughters. The story happened in 2016. Jumeirah 1 is an old area in Dubai. Many houses there are old, though they are very expensive, since they're just a 5-minute walk from the beach. This family moved in a new house with a 1-year lease contract. After organizing furniture, they moved in and the 3 daughters picked the rooms they wanted. On the 3rd night, the youngest daughter, age 10, came to her sisters crying, saying she doesn't want to sleep in her room anymore. When they asked her why, she didn't want to speak. She then slept with them in another room that night. On the 4th night, she comes back at 1 a.m. crying again, but this time she seemed petrified. She was shivering, begging not to sleep in her bedroom. One of the sisters gets up and walks towards her room. She bends over to get a peek, while the 2 other sisters were staring at her from behind. This sister got paralyzed from waist up. She wanted to scream for help, but she was not able to move a muscle.
and her sisters behind her didn't know that she was struggling. She was frozen in her spot. She fell down a few seconds later, and she runs to wake up her parents. She was shouting intensely, explaining what just happened. The father gets up and gently goes inside that bedroom, as if someone in there was calling him. He goes in and shockingly closes the door behind him. It was a terrifying moment of silence, as the whole family waited for the father outside that door. A minute felt like an hour. He comes out with an agitated face and says, "All of you should leave this house now." The mother knew exactly what her husband was going through. She acted normal. She took her daughters and left the house. Never try fixing a situation like this if you're angry. This is the latest update. The father is fine. The daughters are okay. The whole family is safe and happy in a new home. But just to show you how haunted this house is, in 2018, the landlord decided to demolish and rebuild this house. They were 2 weeks behind schedule because 13 deconstructing equipment were damaged during the process.
Definitely has to be some validity to that story, man. 13.
Skin crawl. Zion Clark was born without legs because of a rare genetic condition and dreams of becoming a multi-time Olympic champion. He recently achieved the record for the fastest man on his hands in the world. Measured at a length of 24 feet, Ayana Williams has the female record for the longest fingernails on a pair of hands. Next, this video shows 20-year-old Karubal Yoma from Ethiopia performing a unique talent as he attempts to break the record for the longest time to spray water from his mouth. He achieved the record spraying water for 56 seconds straight. This clip shows Sultan Kosin from Turkey and Chandra Dongi from Nepal as they're meeting for the first time in 2014. At the time, Sultan was the tallest man in the world, measuring a staggering 8 foot 2 inches, whereas Chandra was the shortest, measuring just 21.5 inches tall.
Okay, this picture is absolutely terrifying. Yesterday in Australia, this girl drops her phone and it falls in between these two boulders. She then reaches to try grab it, falls in, and ends up getting trapped upside down. And if anyone is getting Nutty Putty cave vibes from this, well, you should. Her friends did everything they could to try and get her out, but eventually, out of desperation, they called emergency services. She remained upside down for a staggering 7 hours while rescue teams used this specialized winch to remove the boulders and then gently snake her out. When she was rescued, she felt dizzy, her head was swollen, and it took a while for her to regain feeling in her legs again. Her phone was never found.
These are the weird.
All that for a phone? Man, if you see it fall, like, that's like, man, when the phone falls into like the crack of the you know, the couches and stuff like that, you know, that space where it's just like an empty void. It goes in there, it's gone forever, bro. Man, if I see your phone fall down the boulder in a crack like that, I can't. I kind of get claustrophobic vibes, so I can't do it.
It is world records on Earth. Alright, so first, this woman has the longest fingernails in the world. And apparently they measure 4 foot 6 inches. All I'm wondering is how does she wipe? And this man has the stretchiest skin in the world because when he was younger, he was diagnosed with a disease that caused his skin to be super stretchy. He's kind of like Elastic Man from the Fantastic Four. And finally, this guy has the biggest tongue in the world. And when he inflates it, his tongue looks way bigger than a golf ball. Believe me, his girlfriend hasn't left him in 10 years.
This is the ugliest woman in the whole world. That is the sad, unofficial title this woman received in the 1900s. Her name is Mary Ann Bevan, and this is her story. She was born in London in 1874 to a middle-class family, and in 1894 she became a nurse. She married Thomas Bevan in 1903, but only 3 years later she was struck by a rare disease that doctors didn't know much about. The hormonal disease is known as acromegaly, which affects the bones. This causes the bones to grow 2 to 3 times more than normal, and usually only affects the hands and feet. But her case was severe, and it affected her whole body. As you can tell by the photos, Her appearance changed drastically in just a few years. Her husband, although confused about what was happening to his wife, stuck by her side until he tragically died of a stroke in 1914, and she was left to raise 4 children alone. Her disease even caused her to lose her job, but she was determined to do what she had to for her children. She was forced by her predicament to join a contest, which was the ugliest woman in the world, where she won first prize. The media would pay her small amounts to take photos and write horror stories about her. Honestly, she should have won Best Mother in the World award for doing all this for her children. Due to all the media attention, she was actually invited to work at the Dreamland Circus on Coney Island in 1920. For 13 years, she worked in the freak show business, suffering being called a monster, a freak, being beaten up, all to watch her children grow. On December 26, 1933, she died of natural causes.
The things society will do, bro, just because you don't meet, I guess, a beauty standard. It's sickening, man. Like you said.
Here's the meaning behind beloved rappers' names. Starting off, we have X. He said his name revolves around the unknown in his life, but let's have a listen.
So X Tentacion means unknown temptation. Significance of the X. For some time, the X was the only unknown numeral to me. So, Tentacion is temptation in Latin. So I actually just pushed the two together in unknown temptation because I feel as if that's what my life revolves around.
Next, we have Juice WRLD. His name was heavily inspired by Tupac and a misspelling, but let's have a listen.
The haircut, like the juice cut, like Tupac when he had a movie. I think WRLD came from me spelling it wrong. I think I was making like an account or something, and I spelled it wrong because WRLD was actually taken.
And finally, we have Lil Uzi Vert.
I already had the vert part. It was like vertical, like straight up. One day I was rapping and there was this guy, he was out there, he was like, oh man, you rap fast like a machine gun, like a little Uzi or something.
The Jungle Book was based on a real person. Yes, we're speaking about Mowgli. Around 1867, a group of Indian men were out hunting. They came across a cave where they heard animal-like sounds. They entered the cave to find a child no older than 6 amongst a family of wolves. This boy couldn't stand on 2 feet. He crawled around on all 4. And he couldn't even talk. In fact, he mimicked the sounds of the wolves he was living with. The hunters killed the wolves and took the boy back to an orphanage. Over the years, he learned to stand upright, but never really learned how to talk. Instead, he continued making animal-like sounds the rest of his life. They named this boy Dinasamicha. Also, have you heard about my upcoming documentary? You can check the pinned for more info.
The Jungle Book was based off a real story? Hey man, like I said, I learned watching these clips together with you guys, man, that these kid movies and TV shows, they're always based off of like a story that's out there, man. So can't put it past them. But that was a classic, and I never even knew that.
These are the craziest world records that will blow your mind. Part 1.
Talk about it.
Gary Turner, the man with the world's stretchiest skin. He can stretch his skin up to 6 inches due to a rare disorder in his connective tissue and ligaments. Next is Karsten Mass, who has the world record for the longest usable golf club. The club is over 14.5 feet long, and somehow he's still able to hit precise drives. Finally is Nick Stoberl, the man with the world's longest tongue. His tongue is almost 4 inches long. Well, I think we know who's going to be playing Venom in The Amazing Spider-Man 3.
What the heck? What do you even do? The tongue that freaking long, bro.
This story is just one of those stories that is going to stick with you forever. Nicola Gobo was born on November 16th of 1972 in Melbourne, Australia. While she was in law school, she wasn't around the best crowd as her boyfriend Brian Wilson was a drug dealer. Her house had been raided twice and she was scared that this was going to ruin her law career. No charges were given to her, and soon enough she was registered as a police informer. Once she had graduated, she ended up becoming an attorney for some of Australia's most dangerous gangsters. Now this is where things get crazy. I learned this story from Informant's Lawyer X podcast. It's an exclusive Wondery Plus series, and stick to the end so you can get 60 days free to check it out. From 2005 to 2009, Nicola was responsible for more than 5,000 reports and regularly spoke to detectives about the clients she had sworn to defend. Even after the police were instructed they could no longer get information from her, Nicola was still giving them information up until 2012. When Nicola was supposed to be helping these people, she was secretly giving all of their information to the police. I don't want to give away too much from the story because you need to hear it for yourself on Wondery Plus from famed prosecutor Marcia Clark. Wondery Plus has exclusives and early releases just like Informant's Lawyer X. You guys can try 60 days free of Wondery Plus. Just go to wondery.fm/lawyer60 and type in lawyer60 under your coupon code at checkout.
What if someone from the future told you that all digital data in the world will get deleted in 2033? A guy named Peter Reuter claims to be a time traveler from the year 2062 and says that's exactly what's going to happen. The creepy tale of K63 is presented to us today by Spotify, and yo, it gets even crazier. His name is Peter Reuter, who says in November of 2022, patient 0 of a deadly virus started infection at JFK Airport. According to his story, a new variant of the virus known as Pegasus will spread to infect the entire world. Dr. Eliza Knight was assigned to Peter's case, who tells her the end of the world is closer than we think. According to him, kids being born now will be known as the IP, or interpandemic generation, who will grow up glued to a screen and fearing social contact. In 2031, we finally establish our first colony on Mars, but that's nothing compared to the discovery we make there 11 years later. On March 30th, 2033, the world will experience the Great Deletion, in which an AI tasked with cleaning up junk files ends up deleting literally everything. Just imagine waking up one day with no email, no social media, your entire digital footprint is completely erased. Then, in August 2042, that colony on Mars uncovers an ancient city buried under the Martian surface, which apparently teaches us how to time travel. Ultimately, October 2053 is when the entire world crumbles for good. But then, the unexpected happens. Dr. Knight wakes up in the year 2012, where she's now the patient, and a familiar doctor is interviewing her about her mental health, which is the plot of the scripted audio thriller K63, a Spotify original audio series that's oddly close to reality. Season 2 just dropped, so you can binge both seasons now on Spotify or wherever else you get your podcasts.
It sounds like they were cherry picking from, the actual history, man, what's going on now, bro. They included AI, this, I guess, generation of kids that don't want to go outside and just, what they say is style, where everybody be saying go outside, touch grass. They're not too far off. I gotta give them that, man. You guys believe in time travel?
Here's a test to see if you or someone you know has trypophobia. Trypophobia is the fear of tightly packed holes. Starting off at number 1, we have this photo. This one makes me feel a bit uncomfortable to look at, but the next one's even worse, so if this freaks you out, don't watch the next level. At level 2, we have this. It said that tiny packed holes on the hand are what make people the most uncomfortable. If this one is grossing you out, do not watch level 3. Okay, this one actually freaked me out. I don't know what it is about the fingers of the palm, but this one definitely makes me uncomfortable. Congrats if you passed all the levels, and send this to a friend to see if they can.
I made it.
Wholesome facts that'll make your day slightly better. Part 2. If you've already made it to the airport without dying, you shouldn't be nervous about flying because you've already made it through the deadliest part of plane travel. Whenever you pet an animal, it actually lowers your cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. Side note, this may not work on electric eels, porcupines, or anything that could decimate you in 2 seconds. Because guinea pigs get lonely, it's actually illegal in Switzerland to own just one. You have to get at least 2 if you want to have any at all. Sometimes tarantulas will keep tiny frogs as pets. The frogs will eat small insects that would typically eat the tarantula eggs, and in exchange, the frog gets a pretty damn good bodyguard. Capybara Land is a place in Japan where you can quite literally hang out with capybaras and see them chilling in hot springs. If 99% of the world's population finds you unattractive, that would mean that 78 million people still find you attractive.
There's a match out there for everybody, bro. Don't let them tell you different. Edits.
He told the cop to wait so that he could unalive his wife. 33-year-old Destiny Carey lived in Cabarrus Cove, Texas, and was a mother to 5 children. Destiny was a nurse and a successful entrepreneur. She owned her own clothing and shoe store. He was also in the process of opening a 3rd business in the Dallas area. Destiny was married to 37-year-old Kevin Frazier, and he was a veteran of the U.S. Army. He served in the military between July of 2004 to April of 2016, and eventually he had multiple run-ins with the law. He was even arrested in suspicion of assault with bodily injury. But besides that, Kevin and Destiny seemed like they had a very happy relationship, but behind closed doors, it was a whole different picture. April 7th door, a voice of a male was heard inside instructing the police officer to wait. That officer kept knocking on the door, hoping someone would open up, but eventually he heard a woman screaming inside and he kicked down the door. Once he kicked open the door, he heard multiple gunshots in the home. Once he was finally inside, he noticed Destiny lying motionless near the front door. That officer communicated with Kevin and placed him in cuffs, and he was waiting for paramedics to arrive to help Destiny. Despite the help of the paramedics, Destiny could not be revived, and unfortunately she passed away from her injuries. Kevin was taken to the Army Medical Center to be treated for his injuries, and after that he was placed under arrest. Police had interviewed Kevin 2 separate times to see what had happened that day, and he kept changing his story, and none of these stories were matching. Kevin was arrested and charged with murder, and his bond was set at $1 million. It seems we may never know what really happened, as Kevin keeps switching his story up, and online he always professed his love for his wife, but we really never know what happens behind closed doors.
Inappropriate children's
Don't.
books that actually exist, Part 2. The Loneliest Hoe in the World, written by Travis Heaton and published in 2002. This Christmas tale begins with Santa preparing to depart with his reindeer. He congratulates his elves on a job well done by sharing with them some elf juice, and then boards his sleigh until coming to the realization that he's forgotten his hose. Christmas isn't Christmas without hose, Santa proclaims. Ain't that the truth? You Can't Be an Astronaut, It's Just Not Realistic, written by Joseph Smets. This book is a 26-page story that documents a boy who meets astronauts and shares his dream of having their career in his future. They point blank tell him not to bother. They go further by telling him of the complicated prerequisites and the difficult trigonometry. And when the boy asks if he can be an astrologist instead, they tell him astrology is a joke of a career.
Gruesome facts
Dang.
you didn't know.
Crushing dreams.
112. If you ever have kidney stones, simply take a ride on Thunder Mountain at Disney. In 2016, researchers took a model kidney on the ride to see if this rumor was actually true. They found that sitting in the back seat of the coaster would pass kidney stones 64% of the time. Sitting in the front, only about 17% of the time. This photo from the early 1900s shows 2 boys who were exposed to the same smallpox source. One was vaccinated, one wasn't. In 2007, at the age of only 38, Mark Bamber passed away from heart failure. To accommodate his 700-plus pound body, a special mahogany casket was made, which was nearly 8 feet long and 30 inches deep. At the time, there was no hearses that could accommodate a casket that large, so it had to be pulled by horse. After a horse riding accident, Emily Eccles was left with her jaw hanging on by only 1 millimeter of skin. Her surgeon said that her injury is the worst they've seen outside of a war zone. It took facial reconstructive surgeon Ricardo Muhammad Ali 5.5 hours to perform the surgery. This is her ready to go back to school just 1 month after the accident. In 1995, at the age of 61, artist William Utermohlen was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. From the time of his diagnosis until the year 2000, he created self-portraits, a powerful documentation of his descent into the illness. In 1923, jockey Frank Hayes won a race at Belmont Park in New York despite being dead. Mid-race, he suffered from a heart attack, but managed to stay in the saddle until he crossed the finish line.
Here's what scientists actually
Dedicated
found
for
at the
that
bottom
W.
of the Marianas Trench. In 1960, 2 men decided to try and get to the bottom in this ship. But scientists were almost positive that they wouldn't find anything since it was 36,000 feet underwater, which would cause so much pressure and make it hard for anything to live that far down. After spending 5 hours going all the way down to the bottom, they stayed there for 20 minutes and the scientists on the surface were shocked. They started hearing weird sounds of something grinding against their ship. They decided to look on their monitor and they saw a massive shadow with 3 heads. But people think that they were just seeing things because of how tired they were. However, once they got to the surface, the walls of their ship, which was 5 inches thick, was completely destroyed. And the weird thing is, they all kept this to themselves for 36 years until it was posted in the New York Times. But years before this, lobster catchers had claimed that they had repeatedly saw a big fish, which fit the description of a megalodon which has been extinct for over 3 million years. But could one be hiding at the bottom of the ocean? What do you guys think? At first it just looks like
Do you think one? A megalodon at the bottom of the ocean, man? We haven't even explored, I've heard like reports, man, we haven't explored like all of our oceans, bro. It's still a part of it that we haven't accounted for. So that very could be a possibility. Imagine a big megalodon just circling our world right now, bro. Just deep, deep, deep undersea, and we have no idea. Scary.
like a normal staircase, right? Well, now what I want you to do is flip your phone upside down, then blink your eyes and watch what happens.
I need some of you guys to try that. Tell me what you see.
Maps that will change the way you see the world. If Did Not Vote was counted as a candidate in the 2020 US presidential election, it would have won with 278 electoral votes. Americans were asked to point where Iran is. All the green dots are the people who got it right, and the orange dots are the rest of the guesses. Iowa has 99 counties, and it could have been a clean 100 if this one up here just followed suit with the rest of them next to it. This is what the world could look like about 250 million years from now if no international borders changed. This was the Roman Empire, and this was the Mongol Empire at their biggest sizes ever.
Ooh.
The red highlighted places are the only places in the world where you don't need a permit to buy a gun. Basically just most states in the United States and Yemen. Follow for more.
That's scary. Deuces, I'm out.
Hey guys, you're out in the woods and you hear these screams. What's the first thing that comes to mind? This literally sounds like someone is being murdered. And I don't blame her for thinking that it's someone screaming, because I did too. After doing some research on this, a lot of people were saying that this is either a mountain lion or a bobcat. There's also this video that's so terrifying and sounds like a horror movie. So yeah, if you ever hear this out in the woods, it's just an animal and not someone getting murdered.
What happened to the Yuba County Five? 1978, there were 5 men that were coming from a basketball game in Chico back down to Yuba City in the middle of the night. Now, all 5 of the men suffered from mild intellectual and psychological disability. Never gonna know why they did this, but for some reason, when they were on the highway, they got off of the highway and went onto a dirt back road in the Plumas National Forest. You know, is that for whatever reason, they eventually got out of their car and started walking on foot. They vanished. Police eventually found that car and they expected something's wrong with this. Not the case. The car had gas and it was working fine, so why did they get out of it and walk through the woods? Nobody knew what happened to them until eventually somebody stumbled into this cabin. Quick before I get into it, if you want the full episode on this, you can listen to it on Creep Time, the podcast. Inside that cabin was the body of Ted Wire, and he had lost 80 pounds. Didn't make any sense because the cabin was full of food. Eventually they found everyone's body except for Gary Mathias.
This 74-year-old woman.
What the hell happened, man? Like they said, they just went on a dirt back road and just started walking. And they just found him in a cabin? Something more to that case, man, that we didn't know about. I have to deep dive into that one.
Woman robbed the bank after she was scammed of her life savings. This all happened in Ohio when Anna Mayers walked inside a credit union with a face mask on and demanded that the bank teller give her money while she threatened them with a gun. She ended up only taking $500 and then she got in her car and drove off. It only took police 2 hours to find Anne in her home, and when they arrived, she was gardening and pretended like she had no idea what was going on. She eventually admitted to the crime, and it turns out that Anne was recently scammed out of thousands of dollars online and owed a lot of money to family and friends. And because of that, she became pretty desperate and felt like her only way out of this mess was to rob a bank and thought that she would get away with it. Her sister also told police that Anne was going around telling family members that she was going to do this, but everyone thought that she was only joking. She was charged with aggravated robbery with a firearm and tampering with evidence and is being held on a $100,000 bond.
The UK case
Gotta
heaviest
believe
man,
people,
Jason
man.
Holton, has just passed away 1 week before his 34th birthday. His heartbroken mother said that he began overeating as a teenager after his father passed away, and at one point he was eating roughly 10,000 calories a day. Over the years, his weight increased to the point where his legs could no longer hold him, and after becoming bedridden, he didn't leave his room for a staggering 6 months. He said he would cry every day because he felt like he had imprisoned himself. At that point, he weighed around 317 kg, or for those in the US, 700 pounds. In 2020, his organs began to shut down, and he had to be airlifted by a crane from his mother's third-floor flat by a team of more than 30 firemen and engineers. When he got to the hospital, doctors said that they wanted to send him to London Zoo to get a heart scan because the only machine big enough to hold him was used by vets for very large animals. Luckily, thanks to his treatment at hospital, his condition began to stabilize. But 4 years later, he was rushed to hospital yet again. But this time, doctors said that they couldn't save him and he had about a week left to live. The coroner's report stated on Tuesday he died from organ failure and obesity at only 33 years old.
Man, he was young. I can't believe you said it took like a team of that many people just to get him down with that crane. That's insane, man. Be careful what you eat.
This woman got 0 prison time after stabbing her boyfriend 108 times. In 2018, 26-year-old Chad O'Melia's life was savagely taken in his apartment in California by his girlfriend. 33-year-old Bryn Spetcher says that on this day, she was tricked by Chad into smoking a highly potent strain of marijuana, which caused her to go into psychosis. She says that she remembers immediately walking into the kitchen and grabbing several knives and stabbed her dog before going after Chad and taking his life. Bryn then turned the knife on herself and attempted to take her own life before police arrived. And authorities also said that it wasn't easy restraining Bryn and that the taser didn't even work on her. Now, Bryn's defense argues that she reacted this way because she only smoked less than 6 times in her life, which that combined with the high potent marijuana explains why she took her boyfriend's life. Bryn ended up only receiving just 2 years of probation, 100 hours of community service, and no prison time. This pastor...
That case, man, is freaking dangerous, man, because it can kind of set a precedent, man, if somebody didn't, you know, take that type of, you know, material before or something like that, something happens, they just don't have no freaking responsibility to it, man. That's why I said, just stay away from those type of things, seekers, because, you know, like drinking and doing that, man, activity, it could change you. It could change you to a whole different person. That's why me personally, I try to stay away from that stuff as much as I can, because that just ain't me.
Being accused of unaliving his own wife. This case is currently ongoing, but it's been so highly suggested, so this is what we know so far. On April 28th, Pastor John Paul Miller made the shocking announcement at the end of his church service that his wife, Micah, had unalived herself. He then asked everyone to leave quietly and not discuss his wife's death. Micah's family and friends do not believe this cause of death and have taken to social media with the hashtag Justice for Micah. John Paul also wrote Micah's obituary where he talked mostly about himself, not even Micah, who was the one that passed away. He also painted their marriage as like a perfect relationship, which is really odd considering that Micah filed for divorce and a restraining order against her husband only days before her passing. The weeks prior to Micah's passing, she was sharing on Facebook about abusive relationships and really just hinting that something wasn't right. A friend of Micah's has come out and confirmed that Micah told her that there was abuse in the marriage, and also that church funds were being used for things not church related. And since more friends and family of Micah have come out with similar accounts. Also been some speculation that John Paul was having an affair, a years-long affair with this woman that he's been seen in the days before and the days after Micah's death. That woman's husband also passed away in a really suspicious way, but that's just online speculation for right now. The investigation is currently ongoing, so hopefully we have answers really, really soon. But in the meantime, make sure to leave all your thoughts, theories, questions, and case suggestions in the comments for me.
I do
The
the same
FBI
thing,
caught a
seekers.
serial killer whose goal was to become a beast or an animal, specifically a bear/saber-toothed tiger hybrid. He had built himself a beast suit that he was using to maul his victims. When the FBI was originally looking at the bodies of the deceased, they thought it was a regular animal mauling. However, they soon realized it was fossilized skulls that were making these impressions. This led them to investigate Randall Tier, a man who was working at an anthropology department at a museum. He engineered the suit himself at his house, and he used parts of bones that he was stealing from his museum job. However, Randall Tier is also a victim in this situation, because when he was younger, he was seeing a psychiatrist for these urges that he was having to become a beast, but his psychiatrist was none other than Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter is far from an ethical psychiatrist and actually used psychic driving to make Randall Tier become the beast that he is today. He actively encouraged Randall's urges to become a beast and even gave him ideas on how to do this and how to be sneaky about it. And that's another reason why Hannibal Lecter is so evil, and I make this point all the time. Because Hannibal Lecter is not just a serial killer, he's not just eating people, he is actively incubating other serial killers as his career goes on as a psychiatrist.
How far would you go to get more guac at Chipotle? Because this man shot an employee at Chipotle over his serving size. On April 5th, 32-year-old Aaron Brown walked into a Chipotle in Southfield, Michigan to order some food and then insulted an employee when he wasn't served enough guac. Aaron was then seen on surveillance video going around the counter and packing his order with more guac until a worker knocked the guac out of his hand. That's when Aaron grabbed the 21-year-old worker and slammed him into the fridge and shot him in the knee. And while all the customers were terrified and ran out the restaurant, Aaron was seen calmly collecting his food and drove off without speeding. But Aaron didn't even make it too far, since this Chipotle was located across the street from the police station, and he was arrested. He was charged and was being held in the Oakland County Jail on a $20,000 bond, and all for some guac.
For some guac, really? People need to really think their priorities, man. When I be hearing cases like that, like over these small items, it really makes you think how like people just over exaggerate over the smallest things, man. Always amazes me, bro. Oh, some damn guac? Really? You can just ask for extra, man? Let's add it. Call it out like I see it. Damn, teleconnected too.
Do you think that you would be able to predict if someone in your life is or could become a serial killer? Is there a trait that they all have in common? Is there a recipe that creates a serial killer? Are they born evil? Is it a product of their environment? Some experts believe that there is a recipe, the McDonald's triad, which are 3 elements that are the key to predict if someone will grow up to become a serial killer. Being cruel to animals, setting things on fire, and wetting the bed after the age of 5. Many experts also say that a serial killer's childhood holds the key and believe that nearly 100% of serial killers experience some kind of mistreatment in their childhood. I find really interesting because some of the most infamous serial killers, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Paul Bernardo, all claim to have come from really loving childhoods. Turns out that head trauma in adolescence could also be a big factor. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, David Berkowitz, son of Sam, and Fred West, and many others all experienced some kind of extreme head trauma in their adolescence that resulted in a change of behavior. So it's pretty well known that the majority of serial killers are white men between the ages of 25 and 34, but did you know a majority of serial killers are from the United States? By like a ridiculous majority. These statistics are so scary. For my astrology girlies, most serial killers are either Virgos or Geminis. New York is the state with the most serial killers, and most serial killers are born in November than any other month. Statistically, you are more likely to become a serial killer if you're the eldest child, and the least likely if you are an only child. Also more likely to become a serial killer if you are left-handed. What do you think makes a serial killer? Do you think it's genetics or bad childhood, or just because they are left-handed? And is there anyone in your life that maybe you're looking at a little bit differently now? Let me know in the comments.
Maybe it's a combination of all of them.
So if you didn't know, this woman's name is Brianna Williams, and what you just watched was her reaction to finding out the police had discovered her sinister secret. So back in early November of 2019, Brianna contacts the police in order to report her 5-year-old daughter, Taylor Williams, missing, stating that she had seen her the night before, but in the morning she was gone.
Taylor's disappearance sent shockwaves through the community, and people quickly began looking for her, but she was nowhere to be found. However, weeks into the investigation, doubts begin to surface as detectives realize Brianna's story just doesn't make sense. Then, all of a sudden, Taylor's remains are found 400 miles away from her house, with investigators ruling that her cause of death was starvation, meaning Brianna had unalived her. At this point, Brianna knows that the police had figured out what she had done, so she tries to unalive herself, but this fails and she gets arrested. In court, Brianna is found guilty of Taylor's death and is sentenced to a well-deserved life in prison. Brianna's story shows that you cannot escape justice and that karma will always catch up to you.
Missing American and Australian surfers were just found dead in a well in Mexico. Behind me is Callum and Jake Robinson and Jack Rode. They were missing for about a week, and then they were found dead in a well in Ensenada, Mexico. They all disappeared on April 28th. They were last seen in Baja California surfing. One of the family members got worried because one of the men were a type 1 diabetic and he hadn't communicated for a while, which was out of character for him. Then on Saturday, May 4th, all of the men were found inside of a well, and a fourth man was also found, but he was unrelated to these three. Apparently, the fourth random man's body had been there for a long time, so I'm assuming this is kind of a reoccurring thing that was happening. They were killing people and stuffing them in the well here. Police believe these men were killed by thieves trying to steal things from their trucks, such as tires, catalytic converters, stuff like that. All three men were fatally shot and dumped inside of the well. And 3 men in connection with his death have been arrested. Names have not been released yet. And apparently this well was boarded up, making it nearly impossible to find. Let me know what you guys think about this story in the comment section below. And as always, these videos are for informational purposes only.
I've been hearing like things, man, about like tourists, how they gotta be careful, you know, when you go out to different countries, especially because you never know what could happen, man. Somebody's watching you, they know you coming from a different place, and they just straight targeted you, and look what happened, man. There were some surfers just trying to go out for a good time, and a tragic ending, man. Gotta be careful nowadays, seekers. Sad but true. Edit.
Warning, viewer discretion is advised. In April 2015, Shayna Sims arrived at a funeral home posing as a makeup artist. A 38-year-old woman called Tabitha had recently passed from natural causes, and Shayna was there to work on the body. While she was there, instead of making the body look presentable for her funeral, Shayna carved off one of Tabitha's breasts and cut off one of her toes. She tore clumps of Tabitha's hair out, smeared her makeup, and then slashed her face. She even stole the shoes off Tabitha's feet before leaving. The attack was discovered by 2 horrified members of the funeral home who raced to tell the manager about what they had found. The police later arrested Shayna, and she was found with a folding knife with strands of Tabitha's hair still attached to it, as well as a pair of scissors, a box cutter, and various makeup items. During the trial, it was revealed that Shayna had snapped after learning that her husband was apparently having an affair with Tabitha. Seething with anger, she took brutal revenge on her love rival, and was found guilty of eating a body, interrupting a funeral, and unlawful removal of a body part from a deceased person. Shayna Sims was sentenced to 16 years in prison, but was released after only serving 4.
Update, James ruining the vacations with her TikToks.
That was the last TikTok ever posted by TikToker Anthony Barajas, aka Anthony Michael. On July 26, 2021, Anthony and his friend Riley were seeing a movie. On that evening, they were seeing the ironically violent film The Forever Purge, which itself is a critique on American violence. On that day, the two of them were just sitting inside of the theater enjoying the film when suddenly they were both shot in the back of the head. Now, sadly, Riley Goodrich, who was 18 at the time, would die at the scene, but Anthony, who was 19 at the time, was taken to a hospital but passed away a few days later. But why did this happen? Well, it's not a very clear story. So this is Joseph Jimenez, and he was actually arrested the day after the murder. He was the guy who pulled the trigger. Now, Joseph's friends were actually in the movie theater. There were only 6 people in the theater at the time.
And they said that during the movie, Joseph was acting strange, he was mumbling to himself, and at one point he left the theater and came back in with some sort of a package. Joseph's friends then left the theater because they were afraid of what he might do, and a few moments later they saw Joseph running out of the side door, getting into his vehicle and speeding away. So it turns out that Joseph had just randomly decided to murder Riley and Anthony. There was no motivation, he didn't know these two, he just decided he had to kill somebody. And strangely, their bodies weren't discovered until after the movie was over, because there was only 6 people in the theater, including Joseph, his 3 friends, and these 2. So according to Joseph, he was hearing voices that were saying his friends and family were going to be killed if he didn't take a life. He also stated that he wished he didn't do it, but unfortunately, you can't take back an action like that. It's just chilling that even just sitting in a movie theater, an act of violence like this can strike you. And obviously, rest in peace to Riley and Anthony. This is such a tragic story.
The reason that I felt Vaughn was a serial killer, because I've come across people that have killed a lot of people in gang wars before. You know, I did the video about No Limit, G Herbo's crew. There's a guy called Mad Max that, you know, they say he had 9 or 10 bodies, right? But I think, for me, where I felt he became a serial killer was you got these multiple murders. There's more than 3 murders, more than a month apart, some of them are years apart. It was really like, when he became famous, the personal gratification that he seemed to get out of killing, I would say he was responsible for the murder of FBG Duck in a way that he felt responsible. He tweeted a go emoji like minutes after Duck was killed. You know, he got a lot of personal gratification out of these killings. I think he wanted to continue these killings. He wanted the whole world to know. I wish I'd have thought of this when I made the documentary. I've only thought of it after, but I feel like Vaughn, I feel like he's the closest I could describe him to a traditional serial killer is the Zodiac Killer. Because Vaughn killed all these people, he became famous, he wanted everyone to know that he killed all these people. You know, you ain't a killer if you only got 2 bodies. Like, talk about bodies, I got 2, 4 plus 3, 3 plus 2. Like, Vaughn wanted the whole world to know that he was killing. He was putting out these codes. He was getting this personal gratification from killing, and he still wanted to kill. He wanted to have Duck killed. He wanted to have Man killed. There was a supposed rumored body in Atlanta. Now, I kind of disproved that in the video, but it's like, he wanted people to know he was a killer. I think he was more interested in getting people killed than rapping.
I heard about, or seen some videos on it, how I seen King Von was really like that, bro. I know, like, he had that different side to him, man. Might have to check out a video or 2. What do you guys think? Believe that about King Von?
Here's what Baby Reindeer didn't tell you. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past few weeks, you will probably have heard of Baby Reindeer. It's a new series on Netflix, which is a harrowing account of abuse and stalking. Now, it's told by the actual victim in this case, who plays himself. However, there are a few things that have been missed out. Now, Richard Gadd, as I said, was the victim in this case and told the story by playing himself. But Richard was actually a lot more successful than he gave himself credit for in the drama. He featured as an actor on Outlander and Click, and he also more recently co-wrote an episode of Sex Education. Obviously, we know Martha's real name and identity were left out of the series. Richard also intentionally changed elements of her character. He said that he wanted to change bits of her life, as well as obviously using a different name for her in the series, so that she wouldn't be hounded in real life. He actually wanted to prevent people from harassing the real stalker. Another element that was left out of the story were exactly how many messages his stalker left for him. Now, Richard has since stated that there were over 41,000 emails, 744 tweets, and 46 Facebook messages from 4 different Facebook accounts. He stated that the total length of all of the voicemails that the real Martha left for him totaled over 350 hours. She also sent him 106 pages of actual physical letters, which we never saw in the series. Richard stated that not only did his stalker send him emails, Facebook messages, and tweets, she actually also sent him physical gifts. These gifts included an actual baby reindeer toy as a present, and she also sent him sleeping tablets and boxers.
Another true crime story of how they were caught. Lee Hartley, a lieutenant in the Navy, was on a carrier warship when he started feeling ill. Started having stomach cramps and vomiting. He would get better, but then get sick again. And it got so bad, he had to get flown out to Florida, where he later died in the hospital. A savvy doctor noticed that all his organs had been so damaged that he suspected there might be heavy metal poisoning, and he requested that at an autopsy. Because of that doctor, they tested for possible poisons, and they found that there was arsenic in his system. Now police had to look at 4,000 possible possible suspects aboard the ship. Police scoured all over the ship but couldn't find the source of the arsenic. Police were also able to learn that while he was in Spain 3 months before his death, he was also feeling ill along with another shipmate. Police also found out when the ship stopped in Spain, his wife had actually flown out to meet with him for 8 days. She had cooked both men breakfast before they fell ill. Police interviewed his wife Pamela, and she denied involvement and would pass a polygraph test, and the case would go cold for 13 years. Then in 1995, police reopened the investigation and started interviewing people close to the family. Police interviewed Pam's brother, who actually said she had recruited him to try to kill her husband, but he refused. Arsenic is retained in the fingernails and hair of victims longer, so forensics were able to look at a strand of his hair to get a timeline of when he ingested the arsenic and how long he'd been exposed to it. Police determined that his wife Pamela sent him care packages when he was on deployment, and through those hair samples learned that he first got ill just a few weeks when he was on his deployment. He was then sick in Spain when his wife was there. Police believe the victim consumed baked goods from his wife while he was on ship, and he continued to fall ill before he was hospitalized. Police also noted that Pam visited him in the hospital in Florida, and the arsenic samples spiked yet again while she was there with him. Police interrogated Pamela and confronted her with the evidence and information, and she quickly confessed. She told police she loved her husband so much she didn't want to break his heart by getting a divorce. What's crazy is she was charged with second-degree murder, would get a 40-year sentence, but would be released after 16 years. But that was how she was caught.
Crazy, man.
If you buy or sell items on Facebook Marketplace. 56-year-old Denise Williams of Johnstown, Pennsylvania wanted to buy a refrigerator for her boyfriend. She found one listed on Facebook Marketplace. The seller was 26-year-old Joshua Gorgon. Denise went to his apartment alone to check out the fridge, but never came out. On Monday, she was reported missing by her family, and police were able to track her using her phone and information from a Facebook account. She was found dead from multiple stab wounds at Joshua's apartment. Joshua was arrested and charged with criminal homicide. When he was interviewed by Cambria County detectives, he admitted to stabbing Williams to death with a kitchen knife following an argument over the cost of the refrigerator.
The mystery of Kate Yup is...
That right there, man, is exactly what. If you guys gonna meet up somebody to buy something like online from Marketplace or something like that, always make sure it's in a public area. Never meet them at their house or a location of their choosing, man. You have to do it in a public meetup, a public setting, because you never know what can happen, man. Like you said, they were disputing over the price, and look what that turned out. Never go to a person's place, man. Especially if you're buying something online. No.
Still very much unexplained. Kate Yup was a YouTuber who would make mukbang videos where she would eat excessive amounts of food. These were not normal videos. Kate was eating aggressively fast, almost like she was being starved or she was forced. She also wears a blindfold in every video, so her identity is completely unknown. But viewers became seriously concerned when they started to notice warning signs that Kate might be under someone's control. There are indicators that there was somebody else in that room with her while she's eating all of this food. You can hear him breathing in the background of her videos. She's eating so fast that in one video she actually chips her teeth, and when she shows them to the camera, these are teeth that are rotted. But the most compelling evidence to support that Kate Yup could be a victim of trafficking are the cryptic messages that she's left in the text editing of her videos. Since this all kind of blew up in the media, the channel has gone totally dark and there hasn't been a new video in a year.
Barbie has a much creepier
Gotta check
history
that
than I
out.
thought. I'm going to show you some theories about Barbie that have been keeping me up at night. And I cover all sorts of creepy and true crime stuff, so follow along. In 2010, Barbie released a doll that had a camera on her necklace as well as a video screen on her back.
Come
This
again?
doll has since been discontinued, but there's a lot of rumors about what happened to this footage when it was recorded. So people have always theorized that the footage was collected and sold either by Mattel or by someone more nefarious. And it's been mentioned how easy it would have been for hackers to collect and sell all this data. The FBI even put out a statement about it. Barbie also released and discontinued the Hello doll, which could listen to children and respond with over 8,000 pre-recorded answers. A lot of parents worried that these dolls were potentially recording their children and then selling that data, but this doll also has really concerning reviews. Like, people say that the doll won't take no for an answer. Like, if she asked if you wanted to hear a story and then you said no, she would actually push back and then just tell you the story anyways.
What?
And the doll would also ask really specific and targeted questions about children, like how big their families were and if they had any siblings. Was this doll just collecting market data on children, or was it something much weirder?
No one could work out why
Much
this
weirder.
child kept getting sick. So doctors took a look at the cameras that were set up in the room, and what they saw gave them chills. 9 days after Garrett Spears was born, he was admitted to hospital. Since then, Lacey Spears would care for her son through a myriad of illnesses. No one could figure out why young Gareth kept getting sick. Lacey, the dutiful single mother, would document his illnesses online. She created an online blog where she would chronicle her struggles and document her struggles to find a cure for whatever illness Garrett had. In 2014, Gareth, age 5, was rushed to hospital. Doctors again couldn't quite work out what made him sick, but they were able to treat his symptoms and he made a full recovery. Doctors were gearing up to discharge him. However, within a few short hours, Gareth took a turn for the worst, and without warning, he sadly passed away. The hospital staff were devastated, but very confused as to what had happened. So they did a blood test, and that's where they found something very disturbing. Garrett had deadly levels of sodium in his blood. He had been suffering from sodium poisoning, which meant someone was poisoning him. So when hooked up to certain machines in the hospital, there are cameras. They took a look at those cameras, and they saw what was happening.
Don't tell
His
me.
mother, Lacey, had been poisoning him with sea salt. Lacey was arrested. She was diagnosed with Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and she was sentenced to 25 years. My name's Harves, and I tell 17 crime stories. For more, remember to follow.
Just for some clout? People have to be better, man. When clout comes into the picture, they just lose all sense of morality. Never fails, man. Clout is one of the most dangerous drugs there's out there nowadays.
And shoot Geoward in the back 12 times, killing him instantly. With her son-in-law's body on the kitchen floor, Cynthia went on with her birthday celebrations, first going to a local cafe for breakfast, then to a casino, and finally to her favorite coffee shop, where she was brought into questioning by police. And what followed is an interrogation that would make anyone's blood curdle.
Come here.
I'm sorry!
We're just gonna put handcuffs on just for now. Where's the knife?
Sorry, Dad, I'm sorry, I don't know what's that.
This is police body cam footage that depicts a 12-year-old girl after she just stabbed and killed her 9-year-old brother. She's seen crying and apologizing to police and her mother repeatedly. This would take place on Friday night in Oklahoma.
Just sit there for a second. You don't have the knife on you, right?
No, I swear I don't. I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I don't. I'm sorry.
It would be nighttime and the one parent would be sleeping upstairs when the 12-year-old daughter would stab her 9-year-old brother repeatedly in the chest. She then would go upstairs to wake up her parent to inform them of what she had just done.
I went upstairs in my room and I threw it out the window and it's behind the apartment right here.
You threw it where?
I threw it out my window upstairs. Not right there. It's the room. It's the other room. It's right behind the apartment. This apartment right here.
The young girl will be taken into custody and is currently being held at the Family Center for Juvenile Justice.
The hell made her do that? See how we're looking around?
Yeah.
So this is death row inmate Taylor
Definitely
Parker,
got out.
who went to extreme lengths to cover up her lies. She even killed a pregnant woman in order to steal the baby from her womb, just to prove she was really pregnant. So picture here we have Taylor and her boyfriend Wade, and what appears to be a baby bump. What later is found out is just an actual prosthetic baby bump, not a real one. She was covering up this entire time, pretending to be pregnant so that Wade would not leave her. Now, she couldn't have gotten pregnant because she had a hysterectomy several years earlier, but Wade was unaware of this. Well, that's where Reagan comes into play, because Reagan actually was pregnant around the same time that Taylor said she was pregnant. And she knew Reagan because she had been a photographer at Reagan's wedding. Now, Taylor's perpetrating this lie the entire time. So even holding a gender reveal party and going to ultrasound, sending fake
images to her boyfriend. He never gets to go into the doctor's office. She keeps telling him, oh, sorry, it's COVID. You're not allowed to go back there. So he begins to grow a little suspicious of the whole thing, especially after when the day she was supposed to be induced, his house catches on fire and a bomb threat at the hospital they were supposed to be induced at occurs. And then she becomes 3 weeks late on her pregnancy. That's when Wade's mother pulls him aside and says, you know, I actually think you're onto something. She's probably not pregnant. Wade confronts her once again about the whole thing, and she says, watch, I'm going to get induced at a hospital in Oklahoma, and you will see. So Friday, she sets up an appointment to be induced. So that morning, Wade actually goes to a hog sale because he was supposed to go down to this sale about 4 hours from their house, come back, drive her to the hospital, and watch the baby be induced. Well, ends up being that he goes there and it was a false. She had set this up for him to actually go to this hog hunt so she could go see Reagan and murder her, and she does. Sadly, she goes over to her friend's house, attacks her, stabs her with a scalpel that she had over 100 times while her little daughter is standing right there. Then she cuts open her stomach and extracts the baby from it and rushes towards the hospital. She gets pulled over for speeding and says, hey, look, I just had this baby. It's unresponsive. Help me, help me. She had actually tucked the umbilical cord into her pants to make it look like the baby was still attached to her. But the hospital staff begins to grow suspect as she refuses to be checked at all, and the baby shows up dead, and they actually heard that there was a baby that was abducted from another murder victim after the mother of Reagan showed up and found her daughter with 100 stab wounds. Sadly, at court, all this web of lies comes out. Reagan and the baby were killed. She was sentenced to murder and sentenced to death in Texas, where she currently sits on death row awaiting execution.
So update on the election.
One of the most freaking bizarre cases, man, we heard, man. And it just goes to prove when a person is lying, man, they spinning those webs, how they would just try to do anything to cover it up. Like, she went to the extremes. That's because, like I said, that boyfriend and then boyfriend moms were catching on that, hey, like, you probably not pregnant. Like, you was on to something. And look what she did. Lies can be one of the most dangerous, unpredictable people in the world. Seekers.
Lexi Treviso case, if you didn't know, a lot of people that went to school with her are starting to speak out on social media outlets, and the Daily Mail just published an article on Saturday. So the headline reads, she was a master manipulator. Alexi Treviso knew she was pregnant and had even picked out the name Alex for her baby boy, but hid it from everyone. So what the students told Daily Mail is that around mid-November, students already started to speculate if she was pregnant or not, which she was denying all the rumors. Even her cheer coach had asked her if she was pregnant, but she said that it was the pill, which is why she gained so much weight. But she obviously looked pregnant. I mean, she was actually pregnant, but they felt that they couldn't keep asking her because it was just gonna make them look wrong. As in, they were giving her the benefit of the doubt that maybe she was just gaining lots of weight. And when the news broke back in January that someone had discarded their baby in the hospital, people already started to suspect that it was Alexi. So the students did explain that after the news had broke out, both Alex and Devin were gone for a couple of weeks, which they were able to put two and two together. And when they came back, Alex at one point had the audacity to write a poem called People Talk, basically addressing all the rumors that were going on about her. The reason they also said they couldn't just come out and talk about what was actually happening is because the school was threatening them if they were to talk, they were going to be suspended and not be able to participate in the graduation ceremony. She is currently out on a $100,000 bail and awaiting trial on September 11th.
Oh my God, you
People
guys,
talking
this is
about the
probably
truth.
the biggest story in true crime today, or it probably will be for the next week. Did you guys see that someone confessed to the murder of JonBenet Ramsey? For my younger followers, this is JonBenet Ramsey. She was killed in her home December 27th, 1996. She was a 6-year-old little girl. She lived in Boulder, Colorado, and someone came in the middle of the night, it was presumed, and kidnapped her. Now, it has been long speculated that the parents were involved. So they said they woke up and there was a ransom note. They were very well off. And I've heard theories also that the son was involved. He was roughly her age, maybe a couple years older than her. So like I said, she was killed on December 26, 1996. Now, on December 27th, 1996, this was a huge national story. Now, before the story became known as widely as it was, the Boulder police received a tip that someone had gotten a phone call from a friend that he hadn't spoken to in years, saying that he was scared. He hurt a little girl in Boulder, Colorado. Now, authorities never looked into this or questioned the guy, but the guy in question was Gary Oliva, and this is a picture of him at the 1-year anniversary at the JonBenet Ramsey vigil. This was a picture taken by a private investigator hired by John Ramsey, which was JonBenet's father. He gave them this information and they never looked into it further.
Wow.
So again, like all my videos, what is going on with the justice system in this country? So they never looked into it, never questioned this guy, but 4 years later, in 2000, this guy was arrested with, relating to CSA. I can't really say it on TikTok, but you get the idea. He was arrested in 2000, at which point he wrote more letters, confession letters, to this friend that lived in California. Okay, so fast forward to 2016, this guy gets arrested yet again, and cops find pictures of JonBenet on his phone, and the CSA charges that he was being arrested for multiple times, and the multiple tips from this guy that he had called and said, "I'm scared, I hurt this girl," were never looked into. What?
Again?
Today we're going to be talking about a murderer and a serial
The
rapist
system.
by the name of Mr. Cruel, who a few decades ago was Australia's most wanted and was also known as the boogeyman of Australia.
So according to various sketches, this is what Mr. Cruel looked like. And between 1987 and 1991, he broke into 3 homes of 3 Australian parents, and then he would bound the parents and take their daughters. On the morning of August 22nd, 1987, a masked man broke into a quiet home in the suburbs in Melbourne, Australia. He forced both parents onto their stomachs and then bound them. And then he locked them in a closet as he proceeded to rape their 11-year-old daughter. He cut the phone lines and then he left after assaulting the daughter. When the police first heard about this case, they were trying to figure out what happened and asked the parents. The parents then said that the attacker came into their house with a gun and a knife and tied them in knots which can only be known by sailors. So this gave the police a hint as to who he could be. But because he was wearing a mask, he was unable to be identified. The little girl who was attacked then told the police that he had made a phone call and told the person on the phone call to move their children and also called him a bozo. But when the police looked into it, they found no record of any phone call. This was just something that Mr. Cruel did to throw the police off his case. He was doing this to purposely confuse investigators. And that's when he went for his second victim, Sharon Wills, who was 10 years old. Just days after Christmas in 1988, John Wills, his wife, and their 4 daughters were asleep. And this house was a couple of miles away from where the first crime took place. Wearing dark blue overalls and a dark ski mask, Mr. Cruel came back. He held a gun to the father's head, and just like the previous crime, rolled the parents onto the stomachs and bound them and gagged them. He knew Sharon Wills' name and woke her up. He then blindfolded her, gagged her, and took her away, and fled the house with some of her clothing the next morning. By the time the father got help, it was too late. Mr. Cruel was gone and so was Sharon Wills. But 18 hours later, a woman stumbled upon her. She was dressed in a green garbage bag, standing on the street a quarter after midnight. Because she was blindfolded throughout the assault, she couldn't give much information to the police. But Mr. Cruel made sure to wash her body and cut her fingernails and floss her teeth, so there was no forensic evidence available. He then told her that he was the boogeyman. But this was just the beginning of Mr. Cruel's attacks. He then proceeded to attack another girl and murder and attack one more. Running out of time, so I'm gonna have to make a part 2, but make sure you check it out.
This is one of the most high-profile pedophiles in Hollywood, Jeffrey Jones. You might recognize Jeffrey from a number of movies he's been in, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, The Hunt for Red October, and Beetlejuice. It's highly ironic to me that in a lot of the movies he was in, Jeffrey Jones played the villain, and he ended up being one in real life. So after his career flourished in the late 80s and 90s, let's fast forward to 2002. That year, Jeffrey was arrested for the possession of CP, if you know what I'm talking about, and he was accused by a 17-year-old boy of soliciting him to take nude photos. These charges get even more disturbing when you realize that the young boy who accused Jeffrey of soliciting him to take nude photographs was 14 when the charges were originally brought up and the accusations were made. Jeffrey pleaded no contest to the solicitation. He openly admitted that he had done this horrible thing. But once again, because of legal loopholes, because he admitted to this and pled no contest, that meant that the other CB charges were completely dropped.
No way.
And what happened to Jeffrey after all this? Well, he got 5 years probation. He also had to go through counseling and register as a sex offender. And yes, if you're wondering, to this day, he is still registered as a sex offender. You can find the records of all of this online. But it seems like Jeffrey didn't want to be known as a sex offender throughout his life. For the rest of his life, and he would end up being arrested twice for failing to update his sex offender registration. And in 2006, when working on the set of the movie Who's Your Caddy?, the community of Aiken, South Carolina, where the film was being filmed, complained to the government and complained that a sex offender was on set. This was due to the fact that families had been invited to visit the set with their children, and they had no idea that there was a predator lurking amongst the crew.
Right to know.
To this day, a lot of people don't know what this guy has done, and even Justin Bieber posted a photo with him a couple years back, and a lot of people were obviously a little mad about that. And I think it's important to realize that these people are everywhere. They're your friends, your family, your neighbors. They're even celebrities. And at the end of the day, even the people that you look up to and have seen a million times on the silver screen could be the worst people you've ever met in real life. If you like these types of stories, give me a follow or listen to my wife and I's podcast, Murder in America.
Like you said, man, it seems like it's always somebody in Hollywood or famous in that realm that has that problem, man. Y'all know the beef that's going on with freaking Jake and Kendrick Lamar right now. You know what Kendrick said, how he been dropping dishes and about hinting about certain stuff. It's like it's crazy. It's a rampant problem in Hollywood, man. Or when it involves famous people, we don't know if it's true now. It's not confirmed, but it's just crazy how it's always like someone in that realm or something like that. That's just something to think about.
Patreon. I know if Amanda was alive, she'd be a Patreon member. Thank God for true crime. What would...
Here's the thing. I enjoy listening to some true crime podcasts. I like when they're mysteries and there's like an investigation involved. I honestly like it when a journalist does it and they're in tandem with the family and the family knows about it, so they're kind of working on it together. Like there's a lot of good examples. There's Someone Knows Something, Crime Junkie, although not a great name. My favorite podcast of all time is The Last Podcast on the Left. They don't do all true crime, they do a bunch of other stuff too, but like when they do true crime, they're really good at like demystifying like these serial killers, like, oh, they did, and they're like, no, they're losers. So I really appreciate that. But anyway, someone recommended My Favorite Murder, and I listened to an episode, and I was like, no. First of all, the first half was just like 40 minutes of them doing bits between them, and I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to be a true crime podcast, don't you do research and stuff? They did very little research, like they infantilized like the victims, like it was just really uncomfortable to listen to. So I checked their Instagram and I'm like, how popular are these guys? And they have a lot of followers. And they either posted or reposted a picture, I don't think it was them specifically, but of someone doing a true crime party. And in my head I'm like, no, there's no way they're doing like actual victims of crimes. Like they're probably doing like movie things or like Sherlock Holmes, I don't know. No, it was actual cases of actual people, and they came dressed up. And one of them was dressed up as a pageant queen, like a toddlers and tiaras kind of person. Like the full pageant, like the crown and everything. Because she was impersonating a girl named JonBenet Ramsey who was murdered in 1997, who was 6. And they like reposted it. Like, at what point of delusion are you doing that? Like, that's genuinely disgusting. And they're really popular. Guys, again, I would just be, like, considerate of your consumption. Like, there are a lot of, like, true crime podcasts that, like, work very closely with victims and, like, raise a lot of money. Like, Crime Junkie, like, started a project where they actually identified 2 unidentified people because they raised enough donations to get the DNA testing for them, which was like, oh, it was amazing. It was like, oh, okay, you're doing something. Not doing bits and not dressing as like a child victim for a party. And Last Podcast on the Left does a lot of like alien episodes and Bigfoot episodes. Those are my favorite.
That's actually insane. Truly, that's one of the first time I heard about it. A true crime party where they dress up as who even thought of that idea? Who even thought, hey, let's have a true crime party and we dress up as the victims? Knowing what they went through, I know the story, the background. behind it, and y'all throwing a party, dressing up as them. Like, they don't think how that can like affect the family members and stuff like that. Like, what happens if somebody found out, I guess, in their family, man, that they having a party and they dressing up as a victim? That's not funny. That's not even a great idea, a fun idea. Who the hell even thought that up, man? People nowadays, bro. I'm trying to tell you, they don't think before they act, before they do things like this, man. It's crazy. The things people do, man. As a form of entertainment, we gotta be better. Everybody, man. All around. You guys, if you guys stay with me to the end of the video, you're a true seeker seeking the truth. I greatly appreciate the support, guys. Like I said, if you guys subscribe to the channel, hit that post notification bell, hit that like button, man. We're growing. I greatly appreciate the support, man. Like I said, I know we can grow our community, the seekers, into something special. I just need you guys' help to follow those 3 simple steps, man. We're golden. Like I said, man, we've been daily uploading, man, every single day, man. I'm planning to do the same thing this month. Hopefully, I want you guys to stick with me through the journey. Like I said, I've been trying to upgrade the channels. Like I said, tell me also down below if you guys like my new reacting style, man. As you guys can see, I'm pausing way less. I'm trying to limit to 2 or 3 pauses, maybe throughout like the whole video, and just save my thoughts until after and kind of speak on it. I'll really only pause like through the video if it's like really important, if it's something I really have to get off my chest. But tell me if you guys like this new style. I'm trying to bring the best entertainment for you guys also, man. Like I said, send me videos you guys want to react to. If you guys, I know y'all been saying y'all don't want to see the same thing. So if you guys can send me the videos, that's why I say follow me on my social medias, because you guys send me the videos, I can put them, I can like compile the clips into the next video. So I need you guys to follow my social medias as well. I'm out. Peace, seekers.
So are we about to witness and hopefully live through a world-ending geomagnetic storm? And will it be a repeat of the Carrington event? Welcome back to the Heart Pill Show. I'm your host, Pharaoh, and in this video we're going to talk about how this current geomagnetic storm could have bad implications.
Alright.
Now let me start out that this will most likely just be a loss of phone signal and pretty lights in the sky event. But let's get into why this can be something scary. So yesterday, Thursday the 9th, and today, Friday the 10th, there have been many corona mass ejections from the sun. NOAA released a statement and a warning stating at least 2 X-class, which are the largest solar flares, were observed releasing from 2 massive sunspots in the sun, along with several M-class. Now, these are CMEs, or corona mass ejections, and there was another X-class release this morning, Friday the 10th. That CME from this morning is supposed to catch up with the other 5 from yesterday, right as they impact Earth. It's all scary stuff, and what has people up in arms and concerned about this is the last time something like this happened, the Carrington event occurred. The Carrington event was known as the most destructive CME, and it happened on September 1st, 1859. It was so intense that it created such bright auroras in the sky, you know, the northern lights, that some gold miners in the Rockies woke up thinking that it was morning. But the reason why this event was documented and is such a callback point to future destructive potential of the sun is the fact that the potential EMP that was created by the sun during this event fried all the telegraph poles and systems. Now, at that time, that was the means of communication across long distance, and was also really all the electronics that the world really had. So the concern today, in today's world, is if that kind of event occurred again, which is the concern with this current, geostorm, with how heavily our modern world is dependent on electronics for communication, for transportation, for food, for survival, then we would be thrown back thousands of years as a humankind because we depend so heavily on electronics. So, yeah, but most likely we'll just lose phone signal and have pretty lights in the sky. Good times. Friday.
What do you guys think, man? The video, man, just shows us how much we dependent on, man, technology. And if it's just can get taken out like that, we all discombobulated. We're all over the place, man. I'm surprised this geostorm, like these facts hasn't been on the news or something so people could prepare. Wonder why that
at 8
is.
o'clock Eastern Time, it is an important update. The geomagnetic storm has just reached Category 5, a G5 with a K index of 9. It's the strongest geomagnetic storm in 20 years.
Damn.
What you're looking at right here, if I get off out of the way, is the actual auroral oval right now. It's all the way down to the central United States. You can see it right there. And that's almost down, as a matter of fact, as far south as St. Louis and Washington, D.C. I mean, really amazing. Now, it has to be clear, and of course it's getting dark right now, but definitely head away from city lights, look to the north tonight. This could be one of your few chances in your lifetime at these latitudes to be able to see the aurora borealis, but get to dark skies. This map actually confirms what we saw just a moment ago. This is typically what you'd see. Down to the red line is where you'd be able to see an aurora when you have a G5 storm like this, which extends from, around Norfolk, Virginia, westward to Northern California. And you can see it, just amazingly how far south that is compared to normal. I mean, if it's just a regular geomagnetic storm, it would be all the way up here in the northern tier of the United States to northern Maine, and it's nowhere like that. So definitely try to get out tonight, look to the north. Yeah, there will be some communication problems and things like that, but let's concentrate on the aurora right now, because that's the fun part of these geomagnetic storms. Good luck tonight.
The strongest solar storm to strike Earth since 2005 is on its way tonight. Because of that, NOAA did issue a geomagnetic storm watch for the planet Earth. This is due to a G4 class solar storm, which is severe on the scale. Now, some of the effects that we might see from this tonight are possible voltage issues to the power grid up north. Disruptions are possible to satellite navigation as well. And auroras could be possible all the way down to the Gulf Coast tonight, especially on the horizon. If you want to have a good shot at seeing this, you are going to have to get out of areas of light pollution and also use a camera as well to see it best on the horizon. Now, if you really want to see it tonight, you're going to have to go north up into places like South Dakota, Minnesota, Illinois, Michigan, and especially up into Canada.
Really?
If you guys haven't heard yet, there's signal issues going on. There's a geostorm affecting everybody. It doesn't matter if you're on RTK WAS, Trimble, Egg Leader, Deer. Everything's getting knocked out. A couple of geese here.
Even the geese getting affected.
If you guys have questions, you can call us, but I'm sure everyone's being affected, so I just wanted to let everybody know.
The thing that's getting to me is, man, we haven't been seeing this like on the news and stuff, man. It's like the geomagnetic storms and stuff. Everybody just, they're focusing on the lights, but they just like kind of ignoring the possibilities of what could happen. That's concerning. These geomagnetic storms. When I looked up, I'm about to say, I looked up in the sky at night and I ain't seen no aurora lights. And that's a rare opportunity. Maybe you guys saw, because we all over the place now. I've been seeing from the comments. So tell me if you guys been affected by this G5 storm. Whoa. Another one?
Hey guys, they are forecasting that we will see some additional geomagnetic activity about midday today, May 12th. So they are forecasting that it'll be somewhere between the G4 to G5 severe status. So be on the lookout, guys.
This geostorm, man. It's affecting it. It's affecting everything, bro. That's why I'm tapped in with the TikToks, man. I would have never known. But has it been on the news or something, man? I'm glad for our community, because it keeps me tapped in.
They had a machine that they was using to control the weather. Then somehow the machine got hacked and it started malfunctioning. And it started controlling the weather on its own will. And it started killing people. So they had to destroy the machine because they had got hacked and started malfunctioning, being out of control.
And there's a movie called Geostorm. Is that a sign? Is there any correlation between those two? Any similarities? Hey, man. Nowadays, you never know. That Geostorm, like I said, that was a movie that came out, and we guys been, these videos, you've been seeing how these movies and stuff, they're based off like true events. Sometimes even these fictional movies behind the scenes, man, like every movie, every piece of media you see, man, it comes from a true story somewhere around the world. What do you guys think? If you guys made it with me to the end, you guys are real ones supporting the channels. I greatly appreciate that, man. You're a true seeker. So thank you, man. Like I said, guys, if you guys want to stay tapped in with the community with us, man, follow me on all my social medias down below. I'm really trying to get my numbers up on there as well. So I greatly appreciate the support, just so we can, stay in contact with each other and we can grow and we can share what we find together. Guys, gonna catch you in the next one, man. I'm out. Peace, seekers.